In the realm of philosophy, the pursuit of well-being is a fundamental concern that has captivated the minds of thinkers throughout history. A philosophical approach to well-being delves into the nature of happiness, fulfillment, and the good life, offering insights and practices to help individuals lead a meaningful and flourishing existence. At the heart of a philosophical approach to well-being lies the quest for eudaimonia, a term from ancient Greek philosophy that signifies flourishing or living in accordance with one's true nature. This concept emphasizes the importance of cultivating virtues, pursuing wisdom, and aligning one's actions with principles of goodness and excellence in order to achieve a state of well-being that transcends mere pleasure or material wealth. Philosophical traditions such as Stoicism, Epicureanism, and Buddhism offer unique perspectives on well-being, each emphasizing different paths to inner peace, contentment, and fulfillment. Stoicism, for instance, advocates for cultivating resilience, virtue, and inner strength in the face of adversity, while Epicureanism promotes the pursuit of simple pleasures, tranquility, and mental clarity as key components of well-being. Buddhism, on the other hand, focuses on the cultivation of mindfulness, compassion, and detachment from worldly desires as pathways to inner peace and enlightenment. By engaging with philosophical teachings on well-being, individuals are encouraged to reflect on their values, priorities, and beliefs, and to cultivate a deeper understanding of what truly matters in life. This introspective journey allows individuals to explore questions of purpose, meaning, and happiness, and to develop a more profound connection with themselves and the world around them. Furthermore, a philosophical approach to well-being invites individuals to contemplate the nature of suffering, impermanence, and the human condition, fostering resilience, acceptance, and gratitude in the face of life's challenges. By embracing philosophical wisdom and insights, individuals can navigate the complexities of existence with greater clarity, equanimity, and inner peace, leading to a more fulfilling and harmonious way of life. In essence, a philosophical approach to well-being offers a profound framework for individuals to explore questions of meaning, virtue, and happiness, and to cultivate a life of wisdom, virtue, and inner peace. By engaging with philosophical insights and practices, individuals can embark on a transformative journey towards greater self-awareness, authenticity, and well-being, enriching their lives with a deeper sense of purpose, connection, and fulfillment. A philosophical approach to well-being fundamentally challenges our everyday assumptions about what it means to live a good life. Rather than viewing well-being as purely a matter of personal satisfaction or material success, philosophy invites us to consider deeper questions about the nature of happiness, fulfillment, and virtue. Philosophical traditions from both the East and the West have grappled with these questions for millennia, offering diverse perspectives on what constitutes a truly flourishing life. At the heart of these discussions is the tension between external conditions, such as wealth, status, or physical health, and internal states, such as peace of mind, contentment, and moral integrity. A philosophical approach to well-being seeks to reconcile this tension by proposing that true well-being is primarily an inner condition, shaped by the choices we make, the values we hold, and the way we engage with the world. One of the earliest and most influential philosophical perspectives on well-being comes from the ancient Greek tradition, particularly through the work of Aristotle. In his Nicomachean Ethics, Aristotle introduces the concept of eudaimonia, often translated as flourishing or the good life. For Aristotle, well-being is not merely about feeling good or experiencing pleasure, but about actualizing one's potential and living in accordance with reason and virtue. He argues that human beings have a specific function, rational activity, and that well-being is achieved when one exercises this function excellently, through the cultivation of virtues like courage, temperance, wisdom, and justice. In this view, well-being is intimately tied to moral character. It is not enough to simply pursue pleasure or avoid pain. One must live a life of virtuous activity in accordance with reason. This Aristotelian framework remains a cornerstone of many philosophical discussions about well-being, especially in its emphasis on the importance of moral virtue and rationality in achieving a fulfilling life. However, Aristotle's idea of well-being is not purely individualistic. He acknowledges the role that external goods, such as health, wealth, and friendship, play in contributing to a flourishing life. While virtue is central, Aristotle recognizes that certain external conditions are necessary for one to fully exercise virtue and live well. For example, extreme poverty or illness can severely limit a person's ability to engage in rational, virtuous activity. Thus, Aristotle's account of well-being is a holistic one, acknowledging both the internal and external dimensions of flourishing. Nevertheless, he maintains that the internal aspect, living virtuously, is the most important, as it is something largely within our control, whereas external conditions are often subject to fortune. Another important philosophical perspective on well-being comes from the Stoic tradition. The Stoics, like Aristotle, focus on the cultivation of virtue as the key to well-being, but they take a more radical stance on the role of external conditions. For the Stoics, true well-being, what they call ataraxia, or tranquility, is entirely a matter of inner peace and moral integrity. External circumstances, such as wealth, health, or social status, are considered indifferent to well-being. That is, they are neither good nor bad in themselves and do not contribute to or detract from true happiness. What matters is how we respond to these external conditions, not the conditions themselves. The Stoics argue that by focusing on what is within our control, our own thoughts, actions, and reactions, we can achieve a state of peace and resilience that is not disturbed by external events. This Stoic approach to well-being is often seen as a form of emotional resilience, where the key to happiness lies in cultivating an attitude of acceptance and self-mastery, rather than in striving to change the external world. A central concept in Stoic philosophy is the distinction between things that are within our control and things that are not. According to the Stoics, we should focus our attention and energy on the former, our own judgments, desires, and actions, while accepting the latter with equanimity. This practice of distinguishing between what we can and cannot control is crucial for achieving well-being because it allows us to let go of the anxiety and frustration that often arise from trying to change things outside our power. By embracing this mindset, the Stoics believe we can attain a deep sense of inner peace, regardless of the challenges or misfortunes we might face. In this way, Stoicism offers a powerful philosophical framework for well-being, one that emphasizes self-discipline, rationality, and emotional resilience in the face of life's inevitable uncertainties. Eastern philosophies also provide rich insights into the nature of well-being. In Buddhist thought, for example, well-being is closely tied to the concept of dukkha, often translated as suffering or unsatisfactoriness. According to the Buddha's teachings, the root cause of human suffering is attachment, our tendency to cling to things, people, or experiences in the hope that they will bring us lasting happiness. However, because everything in life is impermanent, this attachment inevitably leads to suffering when we lose the things we are attached to or when they fail to meet our expectations. From a Buddhist perspective, well-being is achieved not by accumulating wealth, status, or sensory pleasures, but by cultivating a state of non-attachment and inner peace. This is realized through practices such as meditation, mindfulness, and ethical living, which help individuals develop insight into the true nature of reality and let go of the delusions that cause suffering. For Buddhists, well-being is not about avoiding pain or seeking pleasure, but about developing a deep understanding of the impermanent and interconnected nature of all things. This understanding leads to a state of nirvana, or liberation from suffering, which is characterized by profound inner peace and compassion for all beings. In this sense, well-being is not something that can be achieved through external means, it is a state of mind that arises from wisdom and ethical conduct. Like the Stoics, Buddhists emphasize that true well-being is an internal condition that is not dependent on external circumstances. However, the Buddhist path to well-being also involves a deep sense of interconnection with others and the world, as compassion and ethical concern for all sentient beings are central to the Buddhist way of life. In contrast to the Stoic and Buddhist emphasis on inner tranquility, some philosophical approaches to well-being highlight the importance of personal freedom and self-expression. For example, existentialist thinkers like Jean-Paul Sartre and Simone de Beauvoir argue that well-being is fundamentally about living authentically, which means taking responsibility for one's own existence and making choices that reflect one's true values and desires. According to existentialist philosophy, human beings are condemned to be free, that is, we have no pre-given essence or purpose, and it is up to each individual to create meaning in their own life. This freedom is both exhilarating and burdensome, as it requires us to confront the anxiety and uncertainty that come with making choices in an indifferent universe. For the existentialists, well-being is not about achieving a fixed state of happiness or contentment, but about embracing the freedom and responsibility that come with being human. This means accepting the inherent uncertainty and ambiguity of life and making choices that are true to oneself, even in the face of external pressures or societal expectations. In this view, well-being is closely tied to authenticity, living in a way that is consistent with one's own values and beliefs, rather than conforming to external standards of success or happiness. While this approach to well-being may seem more individualistic than the Stoic or Buddhist perspectives, it also emphasizes the importance of engaging with the world and taking action to shape one's own destiny. The existentialist approach to well-being challenges us to take ownership of our lives, to confront the existential anxiety that comes with freedom, and to create meaning in a world that offers no guarantees. From an existentialist perspective, well-being also involves the courage to face the inherent absurdity of life. Existentialists such as Albert Camus argue that life is fundamentally meaningless, and that our search for meaning in a chaotic, indifferent universe is futile. However, instead of being paralyzed by this realization, Camus suggests that we can find well-being by embracing the absurd and living with defiance in the face of meaninglessness. In his famous essay The Myth of Sisyphus, Camus uses the figure of Sisyphus, condemned to roll a boulder up a hill for eternity, only for it to roll back down each time, as a metaphor for the human condition. Camus argues that, like Sisyphus, we must accept the absurdity of our existence and find joy in the struggle itself, rather than in any ultimate goal or purpose. In this sense, well-being is about accepting life as it is, without illusions or false hopes, and finding contentment in the act of living. For Camus, well-being is not about seeking happiness in the traditional sense, but about living with integrity and passion, even in the face of life's absurdities. This requires a certain resilience and a willingness to embrace uncertainty and risk. Rather than relying on external sources of meaning or security, existentialist well-being asks us to take full responsibility for our own lives and to find fulfillment in our own choices and actions. By doing so, we can transcend the despair that often accompanies the recognition of life's absurdity and instead live authentically, with a sense of freedom and purpose that comes from within. Camus famously concludes that, one must imagine Sisyphus happy, suggesting that well-being is possible even in the most difficult and seemingly futile circumstances, as long as we maintain a sense of defiant joy and engagement with life. In contrast to existentialism's focus on individual freedom and responsibility, another philosophical approach to well-being comes from the tradition of utilitarianism. Pioneered by thinkers like Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill, utilitarianism defines well-being in terms of the greatest overall happiness or pleasure for the greatest number of people. According to this view, well-being is not an individual matter, but a collective one. The well-being of society as a whole is maximized when actions and policies lead to the greatest possible balance of pleasure over pain. For utilitarians, the moral value of an action is determined by its consequences, specifically its impact on overall happiness. Therefore, well-being is achieved when individuals and societies act in ways that promote the happiness and reduce the suffering of the greatest number of people. Mill's version of utilitarianism adds an important nuance to this approach by distinguishing between higher and lower pleasures. While Bentham's utilitarianism treats all pleasures as equal, Mill argues that some forms of pleasure, such as intellectual or moral pleasures, are of a higher quality than others, such as physical or sensory pleasures. For Mill, well-being is not just about maximizing any kind of pleasure, but about pursuing higher pleasures that contribute to human flourishing in a more profound way. This distinction reflects Mill's belief that well-being involves not only the satisfaction of desires but also the cultivation of one's intellectual and moral capacities. In this way, utilitarianism offers a framework for well-being that balances individual happiness with the collective good, while also recognizing the importance of developing one's higher faculties. However, utilitarianism has been criticized for its focus on consequences and its tendency to prioritize the collective good over individual rights or well-being. Critics argue that utilitarianism can justify sacrificing the well-being of individuals if doing so leads to a greater overall balance of happiness. For example, in extreme cases, utilitarian reasoning could be used to justify harmful actions against a minority if those actions benefit the majority. This raises important ethical questions about the nature of well-being and whether it can be reduced to a simple calculation of pleasure and pain. Moreover, utilitarianism's emphasis on happiness as the ultimate measure of well-being has been challenged by those who argue that other values, such as freedom, justice, or authenticity, are equally important components of a good life. One such alternative comes from virtue ethics, which, like Aristotle's conception of eudaimonia, emphasizes the importance of moral character and the cultivation of virtues in achieving well-being. Virtue ethics, which has its roots in ancient Greek philosophy but has also been revived in contemporary moral philosophy, argues that well-being is not simply about achieving certain outcomes, such as happiness or pleasure, but about becoming a certain kind of person. The virtuous person is someone who has developed moral and intellectual virtues through practice and reflection, and who acts in accordance with these virtues in all aspects of life. In this view, well-being is a lifelong process of cultivating and embodying virtues such as honesty, courage, compassion, and wisdom. Another philosophical tradition that offers a distinctive approach to well-being is existential phenomenology, particularly the work of Martin Heidegger and Maurice Merleau-Ponty. These thinkers emphasize the embodied nature of human existence and argue that well-being involves a deep attunement to our lived experience in the world. Rather than focusing on abstract concepts like happiness, virtue, or pleasure, existential phenomenology grounds well-being in the concrete, everyday experience of being in the world. For Heidegger, well-being is about living authentically, which means being fully present to one's own existence and engaging meaningfully with the world around us. This requires acknowledging the reality of death and finitude, as well as embracing the freedom and responsibility that come with being human. Merleau-Ponty expands on this idea by emphasizing the embodied nature of human existence. For him, well-being is not just a matter of intellectual or moral fulfillment, but also of being attuned to the body and its interactions with the world. In this view, well-being is achieved when we are fully engaged with our environment, both physically and emotionally, and when we experience a sense of coherence and harmony between our inner and outer worlds. This embodied approach to well-being challenges the dualistic thinking that often separates mind and body, and instead suggests that true well-being involves a holistic integration of all aspects of our being. These various philosophical perspectives on well-being offer rich and diverse insights into what it means to live a good life. Whether through the cultivation of virtue, the pursuit of authenticity, the embrace of freedom, or the experience of embodied attunement, well-being is a complex and multifaceted concept that cannot be reduced to a single formula or definition. Philosophical approaches to well-being encourage us to think deeply about our values, our relationships, and our place in the world, and to consider how we can live in a way that is not only fulfilling for ourselves but also contributes to the well-being of others. Ultimately, a philosophical approach to well-being invites us to reflect on what it means to flourish as human beings and to strive for a life that is rich in meaning, purpose, and integrity. Another important dimension of a philosophical approach to well-being comes from the tradition of Eastern philosophy, particularly through Taoism and Confucianism. These ancient Chinese schools of thought offer distinct yet complementary views on living a good life, with Taoism emphasizing harmony with the natural world and Confucianism focusing on moral order and social relationships. Taoism, as outlined in texts such as the Tao Te Ching by Laozi, teaches that well-being arises from aligning oneself with the Tao, or the Way, which is the fundamental principle underlying the universe. The Tao is often described as an ineffable force that governs all things, and human well-being is achieved by living in accordance with its rhythms and flows. Unlike Western philosophies that stress the active pursuit of goals or virtues, Taoism advocates for a more passive approach to life, characterized by Wu Wei, or non-action. This does not mean doing nothing, but rather acting in a way that is effortless and in harmony with the natural order. For Taoists, well-being is found when we stop striving against the current of life and instead move with it, allowing things to unfold naturally. The Taoist concept of well-being also emphasizes simplicity, humility, and contentment. In contrast to the restless pursuit of wealth, status, or power, Taoism encourages us to find satisfaction in the simple, unadorned aspects of life. The Taoist sage is one who has let go of desires for external validation or material success and instead lives in harmony with nature, cultivating inner peace and balance. This approach to well-being is deeply ecological, recognizing the interconnectedness of all life and the importance of living in a way that respects and preserves the natural world. By aligning ourselves with the Tao, we can achieve a state of balance and tranquility that is not easily disturbed by the ups and downs of life. Confucianism, by contrast, places a stronger emphasis on social harmony and the cultivation of moral virtues within the context of family, community, and society. While Taoism tends to focus on the individual's relationship with nature, Confucianism is concerned with how individuals relate to each other and how they fulfill their roles within a structured social order. For Confucians, well-being is closely tied to the practice of Ren, or humaneness, which involves acting with compassion, respect, and benevolence toward others. Well-being, in this view, is not just a matter of personal fulfillment but of contributing to the well-being of society as a whole. In Confucian thought, the cultivation of virtues such as Li, ritual propriety, and Shao, filial piety, is essential for achieving well-being. These virtues help to maintain social harmony by ensuring that individuals fulfill their roles and responsibilities within their relationships. For example, Shao, or respect for one's parents and ancestors, is seen as the foundation of moral development and social stability. By practicing Shao, individuals not only contribute to the well-being of their families but also cultivate the moral character necessary for broader social engagement. In this way, Confucianism offers a relational approach to well-being, one that emphasizes the importance of social roles, moral responsibility, and the collective good. Despite their differences, both Taoism and Confucianism share a recognition of the importance of balance in achieving well-being. Whether it is the balance between action and non-action in Taoism or the balance between individual desires and social responsibilities in Confucianism, both traditions stress the need to live in harmony with the larger forces, whether natural or social, that shape our lives. Well-being, in these philosophies, is not something that can be achieved in isolation but is deeply connected to our relationships with the world around us. In modern applications of these philosophies, Taoism and Confucianism continue to offer valuable insights for well-being. For instance, Taoist principles of simplicity and non-attachment can help counter the stress and anxiety of contemporary life, where constant striving and competition often lead to burnout. By embracing the Taoist ideal of Wu Wei, individuals can learn to let go of unnecessary tension and find peace in the present moment, rather than constantly chasing future goals. Similarly, Confucian teachings on the importance of family, community, and social responsibility can offer a counterbalance to the hyper-individualism often promoted in modern societies. By recognizing our interconnectedness and the roles we play within our social environments, we can cultivate a sense of belonging and purpose that contributes to both personal and collective well-being. Another philosophical tradition that offers a distinctive approach to well-being is the ethics of care, which has its roots in feminist philosophy. The ethics of care challenges traditional moral theories, such as utilitarianism and Kantian ethics, that prioritize abstract principles like justice or autonomy. Instead, it emphasizes the importance of relationships, empathy, and the moral significance of caring for others. According to the ethics of care, well-being is not achieved through the pursuit of individual autonomy or impartial justice, but through nurturing and sustaining meaningful relationships with others. Care theorists argue that human beings are fundamentally relational and interdependent, and that our well-being is deeply tied to the well-being of those we care. The ethics of care offers a powerful critique of the individualism that pervades much of Western thought, particularly in its focus on autonomy and self-sufficiency as the cornerstones of well-being. Instead, care ethics highlights the ways in which our well-being is shaped by our dependence on others, particularly in contexts such as family, friendship, and community. From this perspective, well-being is not something that can be achieved in isolation, but is inherently relational. The quality of our relationships, the care we give and receive, and our capacity for empathy and compassion are all central to living a good life. This relational approach to well-being is particularly relevant in contexts where traditional moral theories may fall short, such as in caregiving, parenting, or community work. In these contexts, the ethics of care provides a framework for understanding how well-being is not just a matter of individual rights or utility, but of the complex, ongoing work of caring for others and being cared for in return. By emphasizing the importance of relationships, the ethics of care offers a more holistic vision of well-being, one that recognizes the moral and emotional dimensions of human life. In practice, the ethics of care encourages us to cultivate empathy, compassion, and attentiveness in our interactions with others. These qualities are essential for building strong, supportive relationships and for creating communities that foster well-being for all their members. By focusing on the needs and experiences of others, care ethics challenges us to think beyond our own individual well-being and to consider how our actions affect those around us. In this way, the ethics of care offers a vision of well-being that is not only personal but also deeply communal, rooted in the recognition of our shared vulnerability and interdependence. A philosophical approach to well-being invites us to explore a wide range of perspectives on what it means to live a good life. Whether through the cultivation of virtues, the pursuit of authenticity, the embrace of freedom, or the practice of care, philosophy encourages us to think deeply about our values, our relationships, and our place in the world. By engaging with these diverse traditions, we can develop a richer, more nuanced understanding of well-being that goes beyond the simplistic notions of happiness or success that often dominate contemporary discourse. Ultimately, a philosophical approach to well-being challenges us to live with greater awareness, integrity, and compassion, both for ourselves and for others.